One of the remaining 2 courgette or zucchini plants in the polytunnel has finally died, but I'm really surprised that it lasted so long and kept producing for longer than any other courgette plants that I've grown. These were the last 2 plants of an early crop of 4 different varieties of courgettes that we grew in grow bags in one of the polytunnels, from seeds that we sowed at the end of March and transplanted into the grow bags in the middle of April. These plants started to produce their first courgettes for harvesting in about the 2nd week of May, which is quite early for a crop like this in our temperate climate. There were issues with pollination at first, and we had to do some hand pollination, but for most of the season the bees showed up and the plants produced a good crop. We regularly pruned off the older leaves to control the plants, and we tied the stems to a cane to allow them to grow vertically. One of the varieties grew too tall, and other plants had issues with a rotting of the stem, which stunted and eventually killed some of the larger plants, especially with one variety. And when the courgette plants that were growing outside started to produce, we decided to pull out most of the plants from the polytunnel and replace them with a late crop of cucumbers in the 3rd week of July. But we kept 2 of the courgette plants from 2 different varieties, which both seemed to be doing quite well, as I wanted to see how long they would last and continue to produce, growing in the restricted volume of the grow bag. And I was really surprised that they lasted so long, with both of them producing a good crop up until the beginning of October, which is almost 5 months of harvesting from these plants, which is definitely a record for me. The one larger plant of a variety I've grown for quite a few years probably produced more, but died off first, finally getting the same rot in the stem that killed off some of the other plants almost 3 months earlier. The other remaining courgette plant is of a smaller variety that is apparently bred for growing in containers, and it seems to be still growing strong with only a little bit of powdery mildew on the leaves. And with relatively warm weather forecast, this one plant could continue to produce for another few weeks if we hand pollinate the flowers as the bees are no longer around. These 2 plants have shown me that it's possible to get a really successful crop from large plants like courgettes growing in grow bags in the polytunnel, and they can continue to produce for most of the growing season, much longer than I expected. I just need to figure out how to prevent the rotting of the stem next year.